Good morning. Well, I'm so excited for today. It's been a long time coming. We're glad that you're all here with us in person or virtually. Over 200 people are registered today, so really excited to have you all here with us. I'm Julie Woodward, the Acting Director of Forestry with the Oregon Forest Resources Institute, or OFRI, and also very excited to be the co-chair of this year's Starker Lecture Series, Women of Forestry Inspiring Leadership. So I want to thank you to the Oregon State University, to the College of Forestry for being our host site today. And Oregon State University in Corvallis, Oregon is located within the traditional homelands of the Mary Rivers of Evenuk Band of Kalapuya. Following the Willamette Valley Treaty of 1855, Kalapuya people were forcibly removed to reservations in Western Oregon. Today, living descendants of these people are part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. The Starker Lecture Series was established in 1985 by Starker family to commemorate the lives and professional contributions of TJ and Bruce Starker. These visionary men were both graduates of the OSU's College of Forestry, and TJ was in the first graduating class and went on to become one of the college's first professors. TJ lived what he preached and began purchasing forest lands around Corvallis. In time, these lands became Starker Forest, a family forestry legacy that for the last 85 years has been a leader in sustainable forestry, supporting research and connecting with their vibrant communities. This year, we celebrate the 37th year of the Starker Lecture Series with the theme Women of Forestry Inspiring Leadership. We wanted to focus on women who act as agents of change within their forestry and forest product sector, as well as within their communities. The College of Forestry graduated its first woman student, Pauline Bartos Sandoz, over 75 years ago. Whew, can you imagine the world then? Today, the college celebrates the accomplishments of all women who are students, faculty, and alumni in our community as it strives to become a more inclusive space for all. This series has been exploring the triumphs of women, as well as the myriad of challenges they've been facing in forests, mills, research labs, and beyond. This year's Starker Lectures Committee is made up of an ad hoc group of women who work within various fields of forestry and within the college. I'd like to ask if any of our members of the committee and Starker Forest are here, if you'd stand up for recognition, and thanks for joining me in thanking them for all their work. Hopefully those of you that are here in person picked up an awesome bag this morning. And we have inside that tote bag is your program and also a pin. And in this program, you should receive all sorts of information. It has the agenda. You'll have valuable information like all the bios, the list of committee members. And we also want to have some historical women of forestry featured in there. And so hopefully you'll enjoy reading those profiles. We really enjoyed putting those together, and it's amazing. And we could have featured so many more. So hopefully you enjoy those and prompt you to go explore more about the women of forestry. We are honored to welcome our first guest today, this morning, President of Oregon State University, Dr. Rebecca Johnson. Dr. Rebecca Becky Johnson joined OSU in 1984 as an assistant professor in the College of Forestry and advanced to become a full professor. She served as Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the College of Forestry until 2005, and then Vice Provost for Academic Affairs and International Programs for the university. She led the university's efforts to write its first strategic plan. Dr. Johnson served as Vice President of the OSU Cascades and Bend since 2009, helping to reshape the future of Central Oregon. In 2015, she was named the Bend Chamber Woman of the Year, and in 2014, the Bend Sources Newspapers Woman of the Year. Dr. Johnson became Oregon State University's first woman president on May 1st, 2021. As OSU's interim president, Johnson works with students, faculty, staff, alumni, and stakeholders to advance the University Strategic Plan 4.0. The university priorities include supporting undergraduate and graduate student success, advancing the support for faculty and staff in teaching, scholarship, research, and outreach, and enhancing OSU's legacy of more than 150 years of service throughout Oregon and the world. Please join me in welcoming President Johnson.
Well, thank you, Julie. She didn't mention that she said she took a class from me back in 1999. And fortunately, I don't remember everybody I had in class, but hopefully it wasn't too bad. I taught economics. Most of the forestry students weren't very excited about being in an economics class. So anyway, good morning, everyone. I understand there's some that are joining us virtually as well. I really am pleased to be here to be part of the 2022 Starker Lecture Series, Women in Forestry. I doubt anyone in the audience would remember that we held another Women in Forestry event many years ago when I was in the College of Forestry. And I remember we invited Jane Lubchenko to be our keynote speaker so she could share her experiences of being a woman faculty member in science. And I was one of the organizers of the event, and I thought, well, maybe I can find some old notes, but then I realized they would be on floppy disks and it would be for some computer that doesn't exist anymore. But I do remember it being a really powerful and inspiring event for the women in the audience, and I'm sure that today's event will be the same. And of course, as OSU's first woman president, it's also particularly meaningful for me to participate today. But it's even more meaningful because I started my career here in the College of Forestry in 1984 as an assistant professor just out of grad school. And I really can vividly recall my first office was in the basement of PV Hall, the old PV Hall. And over time, I managed to get promoted to the first floor and eventually to the dean's office before I headed off to central administration. But my best memories for sure are of the students I taught and the many wonderful colleagues that I worked with in the college. At the time I was hired, I was one of only 5 women faculty members in the College of Forestry. And today, 40 of the college's 135 teaching, research, and extension faculty are women. In 1984, only 24% of the 510 students were women. And today, I'm pleased that that number has doubled to 48%. And the college's enrollment has grown to more than 1,270 students. But despite that, I know there's still work to be done in advancing women in leadership and careers in the fields of forestry, wood products, and natural resources. So I want to share a little bit about my own journey that led me from being a forestry professor to the interim president of OSU. So my degrees are actually in resource economics, not forestry. And I'd done little to no research in forestry when I was hired. The other candidate for my position was a well-known resource economist who had a few years of research under his belt. His name was John Loomis. Shortly after being hired at OSU, I attended my first professional conference. I met a Forest Service researcher from Colorado who had worked with John Loomis. He said to me, "Oh yeah, you're who they hired when they figured out John Loomis wasn't a woman." So between not having the cred of a dirt forester and perhaps being seen as a token woman, I had to summon my courage and determination to be successful. And it was a little rough in the first few years. Like most PhDs of my era, I was never taught how to teach. People in my field didn't do postdocs, so I had very little experience with grants or publications. And so when I think back at that, I'm starting to wonder how I even made it through. But I had incredibly supportive colleagues, including my department head, Perry Brown. The college put me through an intensive teaching seminar during my first summer, and my colleagues invited me to join them on proposals and research projects. And I distinctly remember my colleague, Bo Shelby, when I was procrastinating on my first revise and resubmit publication. He said, "There's nothing more important than getting that done and resubmitted. Whatever else you're working on, stop and get that done." And he was right. I don't know why my colleagues were so great at helping me to succeed, but I think it was part of the culture in the College of Forestry. Perhaps it's the interdisciplinary nature of forestry that we have to work together to succeed. Whatever it is, I'm very grateful to my former colleagues. After about 20 years of teaching and doing research, I started to think about the next step that I wanted to take. I applied for exactly one other job outside of OSU during my career, and that was to be the department head at Colorado State. I didn't even get an interview. And it wasn't lost on me that all the administrators in the College of Forestry were men and always had been men. When the associate dean for academic affairs opened up, I decided to apply. It was between me and 2 other men, both of whom had been in the college longer than me. I was delighted to be hired, but soon heard that people were saying I was only hired because I was a woman. So facing the same thing again. After becoming vice provost for academic affairs and international programs at OSU, I had the opportunity to lead the OSU Cascades campus in Bend. It was eye-opening to me how much I enjoyed being in charge after having been in associate and vice roles before that. It's stereotypical to say that women are drawn to those helping roles, but I can say that it's much scarier to actually be in charge than to be helping someone else who is in charge. But it's also energizing, exciting, and rewarding. Those associate and vice roles can be great stepping stones, but I hope women see that they can also be the person at the top. I recognize that I always wanted to be a leader from the time I started playing team sports. In college, I was the captain of the basketball team at the University of Wisconsin. And in my years of playing basketball, softball, and volleyball recreationally, I always wanted to put together my own teams. I knew early on that the key to winning was having the right players on the team in the right roles. And when you have a winning team, good players want to be on it and success follows. And of course, this is as true in the workplace as it is on the playing field. And I think I've always been a pretty good judge of talent. I've certainly made a couple of mistakes, but I was also quick to correct them. I've also noticed that women leaders tend to have more women on their team. Maybe that's because we try to provide opportunities for other women, or we're able to better see the potential in women who haven't yet had the opportunity to shine, or maybe it's just because we like working with other women. Whatever it is, it helps to fill the pipeline for future leadership positions. Everyone should develop good leadership skills, even if you don't want to be an administrator, because you're going to find yourself on a research team or in front of a classroom, or maybe coaching your kids' soccer team. You need to learn to assess the strengths and weaknesses of others, figure out how to capitalize on the strengths and help them overcome the weaknesses. You need to think about strategy, how to clearly define the end goal, the steps that you need to get there, and the metrics you need to monitor your progress. You need to think about the culture you want to be a part of and how you can help create and maintain that culture. And always, always celebrate the wins and let others know when they're doing a good job. All those leadership traits will serve you well, no matter your career path. But if you think you do want to be an administrator, you should go for it. While I had sports to teach me, there are tons of leadership books, TED Talks, seminars, and organizations to help you. If you're going to stay in academia, get that promotion to full professor before you spend time being an administrator, or you will be held back from the top jobs. And ask someone you think is a great leader to be your mentor. And don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. Finally, I want to say what an honor it is to be asked to speak at this event, because the Starker Lecture Series was an impactful part of my time in the College of Forestry. As Julie said, it started in 1985. I started in 1984. The Starker family has a rich history in our college, and their sponsorship of these lectures has allowed our students and faculty to hear from many world-class researchers, policymakers, and practitioners. And remember what I said about wanting to have the best players on my basketball team. That included Wendy and Sally Starker, who were a joy to play with. I know that I speak for the entire College of Forestry when I say thank you to the Starker family for your many, many years of support. I hope today's sessions provide information and guidance for those of you just starting your forestry careers. And thank you again for inviting me to be part of this impactful event. Thank you.
Thank you again, President Johnson. We really appreciate you joining us today. When we were putting together this series, one of our goals was to feature as many women as possible from all aspects of forestry. Each one of us in this room has a story that I'm sure we would love to hear. It was hard to narrow down our panels to just a few, but we're going to divide 3 panels today into the foundation of the forest, managing the forest, and the harvest and forest products. So I invite our first panelist to come up and join me on stage, the harvest and forest products panel. I'm sure many of you have read or been inspired by Brene Brown. In her Daring Greatly book, she shares the idea that it takes courage to enter the arena. To paraphrase, daring greatly is the courage to be vulnerable, to show up and be seen, to ask for what you need, to talk about how you're feeling, and to have the hard conversations. All the presenters today are showing courage by joining us on the stage or the arena today to share their journeys. Our ground rule today is going to be respect. Please respect that every person will have chosen different paths in their careers. We've asked them to show up and share their story. Then we invite every one of you to be part of the conversation as we plan to have some time for open questions at the end of each session. And our first panel is Harvest and Forest Products, and welcome our moderator, Michelle Maller. And Michelle is with Oregon State University, and she recently moved from the College of Forestry to the College of Education as a counseling program coordinator. And Michelle is currently in a doctoral program for leadership and academic advising. Thank you for joining us today.
Welcome. Thanks for coming today. We're very excited to have everybody here. I'm not going to stand at the podium. I hope that's okay with everybody. I feel more comfortable to sit here with everybody. I will. Is this better? So as she said, my name is Michelle Maller. I was with the College of Forestry for 8 years in the Wood Science and Engineering program. And primarily I worked with students to get them positions in industry. So that gave me a lot of opportunity to meet with a lot of other great women in the industry. And I like to push that forward for a lot of our students. I also had such a great time being mentored by some people in the industry who are sitting here at the table with me today. And I'm just thrilled today to be able to start this conversation and teach everybody a little bit more about wood products. So rather than me introduce the panelists, I have asked them to introduce themselves and give a little spiel about their intro into the industry, how they got into this career path and why they stay. So I'm going to start with Terry Haddix.
Give me the prompts because I didn't bring my phone. Okay.
1 to 2 minutes about yourself.
1 to 2 minutes. That's all. Terry Haddix. I'm operations manager for Patrick Lumber Company and Patrick Lumber Manufacturing based in Portland and just down the road here in Philomath. I've been in the wood products industry almost 30 years, gonna say. I had absolutely no intention of getting into wood products. My dad was in the business when I graduated from high school. And as it turns out, I eventually ended up being 5th generation lumber in my family. It goes back a little bit. It was never on my radar. So back in the day when you found jobs in the newspaper, not everybody here remembers finding a job in the newspaper. I answered a blind ad and ended up as a trader assistant to a small floor in downtown Portland. I started as receptionist, then went into a trader assistant position, left there, went into a remanufacturing facility, and then spent the majority of the balance of my career working in remanufacturing. A lot of trader assistant stuff, a lot of special projects things. In my current role, I do just about everything, but I'm involved in just about everything except for finance, and I've never actually run a machine at the mill, but kind of everything in between I've put my mark on. Did I cover the bases? Oh yeah. So I've sort of chosen to put myself in a lot of leadership positions as it has become available to me. One of which that I'm extremely proud of right now. I'm proud of all of them, but I'm extremely proud of right now the fact that I'm on the leadership team of the Portland Wholesale Lumber Association with this person right here. And next year, well, she's currently president. Next year, I'll be president. And it's an example of opportunities within the industry that are out there if you seek them out as women, I guess is my point there. Is that it? Go for it.
So the one thing that I want to highlight for that as well is that this is the 100th year anniversary of the Portland Wholesale Lumber Association, and Terry and I are only the 2nd female presidents to exist in that association. So we've come a long way. The 100th year, is the first year that we have an entirely female leadership team as well. So first time ever. I know all of us are very excited about it. So it turned out 100th year anniversary is where we needed to get. We're pretty excited about it. I know, it only took 100 years, it's fine. And so then I'm gonna introduce Allie Kingsley, who also is on the leadership team of Portland Wholesale Lumber Association as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Allie Kingsley. I am the Director of Administration for Wildwood Trading Group. We are a new company. We formed 4 years ago. But I have been in the wood products industry for 25 years. Like Terry, I started out not knowing anything about forestry or wood products at all. I had a 1-year-old daughter and I needed a job. So I applied at many places and I ended up getting hired on, like Terry, as a receptionist. for a company called Collins. And started out there just answering phones and doing spreadsheets and invoicing things. And slowly but surely, I worked my way up. I had some wonderful mentors who pushed me to take on new responsibilities and new roles. And I dabbled in sales, I dabbled in transportation, claims, eventually worked my way up to operations manager with them. Ended up getting some employees under me and mentoring them. And then when the opportunity came to start a wholesale trading company with Wildwood Trading Group, I jumped at that opportunity. So I came on with them as the director of administration and have been loving it. And I have a team under me that I mentor, and they're women. And my goal is to have them rise up and eventually take my role, as someday I will retire. And I love seeing women push themselves to be as great as they can in this industry where it's so male driven. It's so amazing to see women want to grow and work their way up the ladder to better themselves, to be just as good as anyone else out there.
And then last but definitely not least here is Heidi Leib with Boise Cascade.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I work for Boise Cascade as a log buyer and harvest manager. I purchased the federal timber sales, mostly BLM and Forest Service, for our Willamina veneer plant. I also purchased state sales and some private timber. Before I was at Boise Cascade, I had a stint with a couple different state agencies, Washington, Idaho, and Oregon, after graduating from the College of Forestry in 2012. So I've been in the industry for about 15 years. And let's see. I think there are, that I know, thanks, about 3 other women that I know of in the Pacific Northwest that buy logs and are in procurement. So there aren't many of us. It's definitely a long, lonely road at times, but also very satisfying and gratifying. And it's always a joy to find other women that are in procurement or harvest operations and to just kind of have a meeting of minds. I don't want to say too much because I really kind of cover my history a little bit in my speech.
We can go ahead with your speech.
Okay, yeah, okay, let's go for it. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to returning to my alma mater to share with you my journey to becoming a woman in procurement, my role at Boise Cascade, and why we need women in forestry. Growing up in Southern Oregon, I had ample opportunities to fall in love with nature and explore the great outdoors. I would have described myself as an outdoor enthusiast, conservationist, hippie, and maybe even a tree hugger. I was basically your typical Southern Oregon hippie chick. The people I chilled with saw trees as sacred beings needing to be protected and weren't strangers to those that chained logging gates shut and protested clear cuts. It was a culture that didn't value the natural resource industry. The industry fueled the local economy, which provided the very infrastructure that supported their lifestyles. There was certainly a disconnect between those that recreated in the forest and those that worked in it. However, there was one part of nature that pulled us all together and ultimately determined the course of my life. In 2002, the Biscuit Fire burned nearly 500,000 acres in Southern Oregon, my backyard. At the time, it was one of the largest in Oregon's history. It was a tragedy and everyone felt it. Yet, there was one beautiful thing it offered, and that was a sense of togetherness. Perhaps some of you experienced this recently during the Labor Day fires of 2020 that burned 840,000 acres in Oregon. I remember cardboard signs thanking firefighters perched at the end of driveways and tied onto fences, small businesses making supply drops, and groups making lunches for crews on the fire lines. The year of the biscuit fire was the year I decided to be a wildland firefighter, which ultimately was the beginning of my career in the forest industry. I started on a hand crew and worked my way onto an engine with the Oregon Department of Forestry. Fast forward a few years, and I enrolled in the College of Forestry, where I was introduced to logging by working on the student logging crew, the Kohler crew, which is an amazing program I highly encourage everybody to become familiar with and support if you have the opportunity. It is what really fueled my interest in the timber industry. Today, my primary task at Boise Cascade, Willamina Veneer Plant, is to seek out a high-quality Douglas fir log for the mill. Once the logs have purchased and delivered to the mill, they are peeled into sheets and then shipped to our plants in Southern Oregon, where we make engineered wood products such as laminated veneer lumber, I-joists, glulam beams, and plywood. Being a woman in the logging and procurement side of industry has definitely not been easy. I remember at the beginning of my career, working up the courage to walk onto the landing and tell a logger he needed to tighten up his specs or reconfigure his operation. I still calculate the male to female ratio of a group every time I show up at a meeting. But over the years, I've come to realize the real challenge is using my voice and being heard amongst peers and colleagues. It wasn't the loggers that had me crying out of frustration. It was the men I sat in meetings with that only heard what I said when it was repeated by my male counterparts, the men that would interject louder over me. The forest industry is a male-dominant field, especially in the upper management levels in the private sector. And because of that, it's facing imminent threat. We are a proud generational industry with aggressive type A personalities that have failed at sharing our story. A story the public is hungry to know, but needs to see through a different lens. Women used to be known as efficient caretakers and healers, those that walk lightly with gathering and multitasking in an effort to keep everything thriving and alive. We are peacemakers and collaborators. The general public views the timber industry as a threat to our society, to the earth. Instead of being the solution for creating healthier communities, safer environments, and a stable economy. We need women at the meetings. And more importantly, encouraging each other to share their story. That we are stewards of the land, that we are deeply caring for, that we are community members who want to see families thriving, and that we look to the future and plan for generations to come. The timber industry in Oregon and Washington has been voicing concerns over log supply for decades since this spotted out. The recent and planned changes in the annual harvest in Western Oregon and Washington due to policy changes and loss of timber to fires will be a reduction of more than 578 million board feet. About 9% of our volume, which equates to approximately 8 mills. The annual harvest in Oregon will likely fall by more than 490 million board feet annually over the next 40 years, costing over 5,000 jobs. And I did a quick Google search yesterday, and it said that faculty and staff and employees of OSU is just under 5,000 jobs. So that's all of OSU in the state. The timber, we need women in forestry to build social cohesion through the lens of conservation while connecting the dots between the forest products industry and healthy communities. Now is the time to create the same sense of togetherness I experienced in 2002. To save our forests from being locked up and burned up. To save our industry, our environment, and the families that it supports. I'll close with a short story. A couple of years ago, a young woman wanted to interview me for a scholarship application she was applying for. I invited her to take a tour of a working forest, of Starker Forest, because it's one of my favorites. She rolled up in her blue Prius with Bernie Sanders stickers all over the bumper. She was an Asian American living in Eugene studying computer technology. And I thought to myself, I'll be honest, because I'm definitely not perfect and have my own stigmas, this is going to be an interesting day. We visited 3 logging operations, a planting operation, and studied several different plantations of multiple age classes. Every site visit had her genuinely fascinated and in awe. By the end of the day, she was so thankful and appreciative for getting a glimpse of an industry she knew nothing about. Instead of leaving as a hater of the big, ugly clear cuts from the valley, to quote her, she left as an ally for our industry. So my challenge to you is to work hard to get a seat at the table, to work harder to help women get a seat next to you at the table, and then to share your love for our industry to create change.
Thanks, Heidi.
Yeah.
It is going to be you. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that once you get into the industry, a lot of people stay. As you've seen here, we have a lot of women who've stayed for more than 20 years. And so I wanted to get an idea from you, Allie, why you stayed in the industry.
Why I stayed. It's because of the people that I've met. It's because of the mentors I've had pushing me to want to do more and be more and grow. I've got a great group of colleagues who inspire me and know that I am capable of achieving anything I set my mind to. This industry is so much fun. The people that you meet, the organizations you can belong to, NALA, the PWLA, put yourself out there and find organizations to join, find someone to mentor you, women who can push you, give you courage, inspire you. And this is the only, I never thought I would do this. I never thought I would want to be in this industry, and it has been the best thing for me. I have never been happier in a career. And again, it's the only career I've had, but I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Thank you. So Terry, this one's for you.
Okay.
Why is it important to you to have more women in wood products?
Okay. Thought about this a lot in the shower this morning. So that's a full like 7.5 minutes. I think, okay, yeah, the whole reason we're here is women in wood products, right? So yes, I don't want to discount the idea of attracting more women to the industry, but I think just as important and maybe even more important is attracting more diversity as a whole for a couple of different reasons. One being that in my experience, people with different backgrounds, whether it's their job experience, their professional experience, whether they have a different cultural background, if their gender has taken them down different avenues, having different perspectives within your business model really allows for more creativity and more success, just generally speaking. I mean, if you're surrounded by people who look like you, think like you, talk like you, act like you, you're never going to do anything creative. And really, honestly, I think that's a recipe for disaster for any business and for anybody from a personal point of view as well. I think that's just kind of silly to live in an echo chamber. But so that in particular, I think is a huge reason to seek out and try to attract more diversity to your business, no matter what industry you're in. And yes, I'm going to raise the female flag for sure. Absolutely at the top of the list. So opening your eyes to different perspectives and allowing for the creativity and success that brings on is great too. But also from a purely economic standpoint, if you were to just Google, hey, Alexa, tell me about spending power by demographic, which yes, I did this morning. you'll be able to see that over the last 20, 30, 40 years, there's been a major shift in who actually controls the purse strings in this country. And of course, it's different from community to community, but it is not just the cisgendered white guy anymore, right? When we go buy things, when we seek out people to do business with, we inherently see a connection between us and people that look like us, act like us, feel like us, sound like us. And so right out of the gate, we're maybe a step further toward that comfort level and building the relationship that's required to make those sales, those purchases, develop those contacts, which inherently lead us all toward more success. So if you have a more diverse group of people in your business and they're, sales facing, or honestly, I think everybody in any business is in sales, no matter whether you're a paper pusher or you pick up garbage or you're actually a lead salesperson or whatever the case may be. We all represent ourselves. So we're all selling ourselves. We're also selling the company. If the company is white bread, we are not going to connect with X number of people that we want to draw into our sphere. So the more diversity you can have, again, whether it's gender or race or whatever it happens to be, the more diversity you have, generally speaking, positions you better overall from so many different aspects. You're welcome.
Okay, Heidi, this one is for you. How can we recruit more women into the industry?
I was thinking about that a little bit. And it made me reflect on a time when I worked for DNR and I was working with a group of men. I was a unit forester, so I was laying out timber sales and doing silviculture applications. And the other people in my office were 2 men over 50, which nothing against men, they're wonderful and great and everything. But it was, so I was working and kind of burnt out and not really having fun and facing some challenges and not really able to connect with these folks. And then they brought in another forester from another office who actually was somebody that I went to school with here. And we just clicked and we energized each other and we had so much fun and we knocked out double the amount of work we would have done as individuals. So I think there's really an opportunity to attract women into the industry by connecting them with their peers that have the experience, but people that share the same jargon, share some of the same cultural backgrounds, which is kind of the exact opposite of what you said, but it's a good introduction to get people in together and motivated to where they feel confident and to where they feel like they have a place there versus working with their uncles or folks that are just a little more tired. And that's certainly been something that's been difficult for me in my whole career is feeling motivated in an office with people that are looking at their exit, which is not far down the line.
Well said.
Thanks.
Allie, same question for you.
How
How do we recruit more women?
Well, here's my story. So when I started at Collins, I had the opportunity. Collins was a part of NALA, which is the North American Wholesale Lumber Association. And I had the opportunity to start going to the meetings that they had. I was only going to their one meeting, which was their traders market. And I'm telling you, I would walk in there and look around, huge floor. And again, no offense to men, but this is a man-driven industry right now. I mean, we're getting better, but I would walk in and look around and I would see maybe 2% of women and the rest were men. And I was new to the industry. I didn't know anyone. And I'm not going to lie, I would pretend to be on my phone. So I didn't stand out and I'd turn around and walk out and okay, well, good. And then I'd see somebody that I recognized or knew, and then I'd feel comfortable enough to walk in. But it was really intimidating. And every year I'd go and every year there'd be a few more women. And then the next year, a few more women. And we would seek each other out. And we started a women's group called the Women in NALA. And that was our opportunity as women to come together. We meet once a quarter. We talk about anything and everything. It could just be personal stuff. How, what's going on with your kids, or how do I ask for a raise, or how do I deal with a colleague that's difficult? But having that group of women is so inspiring and so exciting. And we are pushing ourselves to go out and find other women. So we push to find other women that we can get to join any of these organizations, because I'm telling you, it makes a big difference to walk into a room and see more women every year. And it's inspiring. And that's how I think we keep, having things like this, mentorships and meetings where women are the focus is how, we push each other to join these organizations and apply for those jobs.
Thank you, Allie. So I have to say too that Allie in the WIN group is one of the reasons that I actually pursued my PhD, because they encouraged me in a meeting and I was kind of wavering on it, and they all basically kicked me in the butt and told me I needed to do it. So forward. This is going to be for every one of you. So all three of you. I want to know what your favorite part about the industry is. Whoever wants to.
I would say my favorite part of the industry is the people, of course. Despite challenges overall, I love the people in our industry. I love how honest it tends to be and how devoted folks are to their communities and to the outdoors and conservation and stewardship and sustainability. There's so much opportunity to learn and to grow in so many levels, whether that's relationally or just learning about new science and new ways to apply systems to what we do. So I love that. And especially more and more as I feel more comfortable with my career as I get older and wiser, maybe, I find myself becoming definitely more of an advocate and being able to connect the dots myself as well in the last 5 years more between what it is the forest industry does for our communities. And I love that. I love to be able to see how we directly affect positive change and are so solution-based for our whole state and the people of our state. So it's exciting.
Can I just say ditto? I actually am dittoing, because really it is the relationships that I've made over the last 25 years that is my favorite part of this industry. Knowing that there's so many different facets to this forest products world. You could have a job actually working out in the forest, touching the trees and hugging the trees, to being up where Terry and I are, which is, administration. There's so many different parts of this industry that you can be involved in. And that's what's exciting to me, is everyone's different, and everyone, who wants a career in this industry, you can have it in any facet of this organization. And that's exciting to me. Terry.
Okay, well, so first I want to go back to this success that we've all enjoyed related to the WIN group, the Women in NALA. Similar to your story, there's just a pitch for getting involved in women-focused industry groups. And you might hear like, okay, Hoo International, it's a thing, right? It's not a strip club. It's an industry group. And it may on the surface be like, that's a corny thing, but check it out. Okay, so, and the reason why those groups, they elevate us all. I mean, you find your niche, like who might not be your thing. Trust me, it's probably not your thing. But this WIN group, similar to Michelle's success, 2 years ago, they helped me write an actual job description and convey to my superiors what I actually did on a daily basis. And it resulted in a 32% raise. Yeah. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have this brain trust of other women to count on to help me, you know, pick and choose the right words and what things to highlight and what things to not bother to mention, things like that. Additionally, they helped me write the job description for the position that I now hold. I made it up from scratch. My team reviewed it with me. I presented it to the board, and now I hold a position that we didn't have in the company at all. And the company is 107 years old. We've never had an operations manager before. So that's my pitch for female-focused industry groups. What do I like most about the industry? Yes, the people are amazing. Cases in point, the people are amazing. But the first thing that came to mind was really the amount of growth that I've been able to see and experience from a personal standpoint as well. When I started in the business, not kidding you, women had to wear skirts and nylons to work. Yeah, the guys had to wear suits and neckties, but whatever. That's not control top pantyhose, okay?
Yeah, right.
We're not, the playing field was not, or heels, yeah. The playing field was not even. And now I work from home. We have paid maternity leave. I choose what my job is going to look like on a day-to-day basis. And the changes that have come from within the industry have supported my individual growth, and have really, I think, turned me into a pretty decent human being in general. I can't say that I wouldn't have ended up, you know, with the internal fortitude and confidence and sense of self that I have now if I had started in a different industry. But I can certainly point to the, call it adversity with a small a, to be honest, for me in particular, the adversity of being a female in a male dominated industry. I mean, I feel like I've contributed to the growth of the industry as a whole, along with the rest of my peers as we've come together over the last 15 or 20 years, whereas before that we were pretty segregated. We didn't really connect with one another, right? Especially in administrative roles. We didn't spend a lot of time going to traders market and things like that because we weren't allowed. There was no point for us to go. So I think just seeing the growth of the industry in general and how it has contributed to my growth, which has then contributed to what I can provide for my family, completely based on my experience in wood products for 5 generations or with 5 generations behind me. I think just growth, the growth, short answer, too long didn't read growth. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I know that too. Every time we did the whole thing shakes. Noted, the whole stage shakes if you move, so prepare yourselves. So really quickly, I just wanted to hit on mentorship. So for me, I started with a mentor who was a young male in my department, and he kind of brought me under his wing, took me everywhere with him so that I got to meet a bunch of people in the industry. And one of the first people that he introduced me to actually was Allie and one of her coworkers, and they immediately were like, come on over. And so that first year at Traders Market, I had 2 very familiar faces that I could go to and hang out with. And that's turned into 8 years, I think, of knowing each other and, you know, being able to hang out and have a good time, but also feel supported. So if each of you could talk a little bit about mentorship, who kind of helped you up along the way and what your plan would be moving forward with other young women in the industry.
I'll go first.
You go, Terry.
Okay. I didn't get my first mentor until last fall. Okay. Again, I've been doing this for a while. I know I look young, I have my mom's skin. And the fault for that lies completely with me. The advice is don't wait for it to organically happen. Don't wait for that chance meeting for somebody that you click with. Seek out other women in the industry. Seek out other people in the industry. Doesn't have to be a guy, right? To get you started, to give you that comfortable or familiar face to connect with in a room of 1,500 people and only 4 women, which was reality. Yeah, just don't wait for it to happen. And position yourself. If you want to be a mentor, position yourself, whether it's through industry groups or just saying, hey, I think you're promising, you have potential. Even if we all fall flat on our faces, let's try, right? It's not a mistake as long as you learn something, even if what you learn is what you don't want. You know, maybe I learned I don't want you to be my mentor. But make a point of putting yourself out there if you want to mentor people. And again, if you're looking for a mentor, don't wait for it to accidentally happen. You know, kiss a bunch of frogs, you'll find the right mentor. It'll happen. They're out there for you.
So I was fortunate when I started at Collins, when I was 22 years old and, you know, looking for a job, got a job as a receptionist. I was fortunate enough to have two women who became my mentors. One I'm still friends with and will be for the rest of our lives. She supported me when I left Collins to move on to better myself and has stuck by me. The other mentor, she was amazing. She pushed me, she helped me grow. When I reached the level that I thought I could reach at Collins, and it was time to move on, she was not supportive. And it's really unfortunate because she did a lot for me and I have nothing bad to say about her. I just wish our friendship could have stayed intact even because I left an industry or a company and went to another one. It shouldn't have affected our friendship and our mentorship. I still wish I could reach out to her for advice. Sometimes mentors, you outgrow each other. And it's unfortunate, but I have nothing bad to say. I mean, she was amazing and very supportive of me. As far as mentoring, I think I mentor my staff. But I'm always looking to mentor anyone else out there that wants to be mentored or have a mentee.
Let's see. Similarly to you, I would say I have had a mentor just in the last 2 years that I feel very honored by, and she really helps me more with finding my voice and advocating for the industry side of things, not so much my actual job working at procuring wood for Boise Cascade. But I'm a first generation student with 6 siblings, none of whom else went to college, and paid my way through school. So for me, it's been an uphill battle pretty much my whole life just to get where I am without, I don't even know if I knew what a mentor was, quite honestly. It was just an uphill climb, grit, work hard, work harder, continue working hard. But there were certainly people throughout my career, which started with my advisor here in the College of Forestry, that supported me along the way and gave me gold nuggets and tidbits and just helped remind me that I was always on a step moving forward. So I can't really speak too much about mentorship. I think it would be great to be a mentor or have a mentor, but I also think my background is just working really hard and kind of elbowing my way into where I want to be. And then appreciative of those that didn't take that as a threat, but saw it as somebody that was working hard to be in a create a space for themselves.
Okay, so that is the end of my questions. Do any of you have any closing comments that you wanted to say? Give you the
I
opportunity.
have one small.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not much for speaking in front of folks, but I just heard both of you a couple times mention the value of talking about salaries amongst each other and then creating the job position together. And several years ago, I was dating a guy that was a manager for an electric company, and he managed a big region, and he was so confident at what he did, and so confident to ask for raises and push for more for himself and for his employees. And it really taught me to do the same and to show up the same for my position. So it took a lot of practice and a lot of courage, but I just started advocating for myself really hard and showing up and asking for raises and asking for more responsibilities and better titles and really voicing where it is that I wanted to go, which was into the harvest and logging side of forestry, which is, as I already described, unique for women to be in. I started in civil culture, but eventually I think because I continued to advocate and push so hard for myself, and that way I've come to be where I am. However, I have several women friends that are in the industry and in natural resources, not necessarily forestry, that have never asked for a raise, have never asked for a title change. And I've had the conversations with them, and I would encourage you to have the conversations with your friends to advocate for themselves and to remind them that the worst case scenario is whoever you're asking is just going to say no. So you don't have anything to lose, but we need to be having that conversation. Well, even if it's like, and I negotiate for a living, so just talking about percentages and dollars, you know, we aren't doing that, and women are so scared to go in there and say, I want this, or I want to get here, and how can I get there? Let's make a plan. And so I just encourage everybody to really take that as a personal responsibility to advocate for yourself of where you want to be financially, which is extremely important, as well as what path you really want to create in your career, because you do have that power, and to encourage each other to do that.
Absolutely. And I will add that what I've learned is don't go into your superior, your boss, and say, I deserve. I deserve this. I need this because this is what I do. You know, this is what like Terry said, I had to put it out on paper and tell them what I did because they didn't even know what I did. And so this is what I do, and this is why you should be paying me this, because I'm not saying give it to me because I can't afford my rent. No, give it to me because this is what I do, and this is what the value I bring to our company. And this is where you need to be with me salary wise, because that's what I deserve.
Yes, thank you so much. So a lot of people, a lot of us, I'm sure in this room struggle with authenticity. Like, how do we maintain our commitment to ourselves, our true selves as women, and yet make a way in a man's world? So my advice to you on that front would be figure out how to balance that fine line. Because the reality of it is the majority of the people that we come across on the day-to-day functions of our jobs, most of them are men, and they kind of speak a different language, right? And that language is, it's body language, it's tone, it's eye contact. I mean, it's all those things that we all know about, right? That are always on the forefront of our mind, and using the right language. Like we don't say, I feel things, because we're not supposed to feel things at work, right? So figure out what works best for you and be okay with changing your authentic self a little bit. I went to a retreat for women in the wood products industry last year, coincidentally, where I found my mentor. And one of the speakers was talking about how she was house counsel for a very large global wood products organization. And she found herself lowering her tone of voice when she spoke to the men, or, you know, changing her body language a little bit, and, you know, not with the hair flipping or whatever, you know, those things that we don't even think about, right? That just happen naturally because we're chicks and it's what we do. And I said, how do you balance things like that? How do you figure out, how do you reconcile making those changes with maintaining your authenticity and your commitment to yourself? And she said, well, if that's not your comfort zone, if that's not your true self, maybe you need to change your true self just a little bit, so it doesn't feel like you're faking it until you make it. It's not saying sacrifice your core beliefs and who you are, you know, deep down internally, but make peace with having to adjust yourself a little bit to make your way in an industry that you love and hopefully want to stick with. You know, figure out the way to make it happen with little tweaks and shifts in tone, body language, things like that, and understand that you can still be yourself. You can still be true to yourself. But be flexible, I guess, is where I'm going with that. Be a little bit flexible, read the room, and figure out how to work within it to the best of your ability.
Okay, so I am going to open for questions, but first I just wanted to say thank you. All three of you have inspired me in some way over the past few years, and I'm just thrilled to be able to be here moderating this. So we have about 15 minutes left in this session, and we want to open it. We have 10 minutes left in this session. Thank you. And we want to open it for questions. And there's mics on both sides of the room that you can approach, or you probably could yell and we could still hear you. So don't make this awkward. Come on, come on. Nothing. Cool.
Great. So
We must have been very thorough.
So what you're saying is they were all amazing and you don't need any. Okay, great. All right, then yes, Tara. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about what's great about the industry. Are there any, I guess, skills of challenging times and how you overcame those that you can share? I think there's going to be challenges no matter who you are, wherever industry you're in, but it's good to hear how you're able to overcome those.
Got one?
So many.
Go for it. Give one example.
One example. I'm still working on it, actually. Honestly, my biggest challenge is what I mentioned is not being heard or having somebody ask me a direct question and having somebody jump to speak over me. So it's really been finding the confidence to take up my space with the gentlemen that are 3 years from retirement and have been around forever. That's still my challenge, and doing things like this helps me be more relaxed and confident that I have value to share. That's one of many, but that's my current situation.
I am actually very shy, and doing things like this are very hard for me. So it's always good to put yourself in a situation that you're uncomfortable with so that you can grow. But in the 20 years that I had at my first job, I had a lot of challenges I had to overcome. One in particular was we hired somebody new and my bosses decided that they were going to give this person my job. And I kind of got pushed aside. I mean, I still had a job, but it wasn't the job I was doing. Same thing happened a couple of years later. I was selling lumber and we brought in some new people and they took selling lumber away from me. Now, looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because that's what drove me into the administration side, which is what I love and I'm passionate about. But it was hurtful and hard to overcome. And I just had to keep pushing myself. I had to learn to put my head up high and not cry about it and just, go into work every day. And I did end up growing even more and more and stepping up that corporate ladder even more and more. But, there are times when you get pushed down and you have to figure out how you're going to get yourself back up. And it comes with confidence and experience and time. It takes time.
I kind of feel bad when people ask me what my challenges have been in the lumber industry because I can't really point back to anything and say, this went awry or I didn't get what I wanted specifically because I'm a female in a male dominated industry. And maybe that's just me internalizing things and thinking that all of the detours and whatnot that happened to me versus things that I chose to do were based on poor choices or mistakes on my part. So I tend to struggle a little bit with the answer to that question. So generally speaking, I will say my biggest challenge in general is imposter syndrome with a capital I, with a huge neon sign, imposter syndrome. Specifically as it relates to being in group settings with people with degrees, like highly educated people. I'm currently a community college student, so yay. But you know, at my company in particular, you cannot be in an elevated position. You can't be C-suite. You can't even be a trader if you don't have a degree, right? So did that choice hamper my success in the business? Maybe, maybe not. I'm comfortable and super happy where I am right now. So maybe it was fortuitous that I never went to college, but it does hang over my head. And through the support of my super educated peers, I've come to realize that my experience has a ton of value as well. So I've learned to depend on that more than, you know, waving the flag. I've got a degree from some prestigious university. So the point is, imposter syndrome is real and it sucks. And you need to name that internal voice and beat the crap out of her, him, them all the time. I'm constantly telling myself and my 19-year-old daughter, don't say things to yourself that you would not say to someone else who you truly care about. It's hard. It's hard every day not to tell yourself you're less than, or whatever those words are that go through your head. But so that's a constant daily challenge. It's not industry related, it's people related. And just look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you are worthy and people do like you. And eventually it will be true. And if it's not, you will have lied to yourself for decades and believed the lie and nobody cares.